Здравствуйте, Diadweef, hello. I'm Howard Crane with EV Radio, and this is the Russia Dispatch, a daily or quasi-daily summary of news and intel to correct the Western media bias. The date is March 3rd, 2020. We are on the fourth day into the peace negotiation process, and both sides have confirmed that a second meeting at a random day and location in Belarus near the border has been agreed. Still, no details have been shared with the public, but Ukrainian authorities make it clear that they will not be responding to any ultimatums from Russia. Battle lines continue to be drawn, and escalation into full-blown global warfare is even more certain, as it was just a few days ago. While the West has continued to rally more nations and corporations to impose sanctions and ship offensive weapons to Ukraine, China has made its position clear that it will continue to trade with Russia despite what they call illegal sanctions. Russia has a number of other potential allies in the BRICS Union: Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. Alliances are scarcely based on ideology or lofty ideas of humanitarianism, and almost always are based on economic relationships. Even though the US and Europe are in the ascendancy, they're economically a paper tiger with Ponzi scheme currencies and a critical dependence on the import of fossil fuels, rare earth minerals, and electronic components from BRICS nations. I'm not an economist, but a deciding factor for many countries may come down to whether they want to trade with Russia and China or NATO-allied nations. Many countries have pre-existing relationships with either party, which is the sole reason this conflict has escalated so swiftly and dramatically already. A number of Ukrainian and NATO media hoaxes have already been dispelled, such as the Ghost of Kiev, multiple videos of Russian aggression that turned out to be clips from movies or completely different countries, and the 14 brave Ukrainian soldiers that told a Russian warship to fuck off. Yet NATO propaganda continues, with claims as wild as Russia bombing children's hospitals. These uninvestigated claims could easily lead to Putin and his commanders convicted of war crimes. This is a worrying development, as the fog of war is so thick that if this were a case brought against a single man for the murder of a single man, it would be thrown out of court based on the fact that there has been too many misrepresentations of facts on the situation leading up to the murder. Putin and his men will not have the privilege of the assumption of innocence until proven otherwise beyond a reasonable doubt. Censorship of Russian media continues. On Tuesday, the European Council wielded its draconian powers to ban Russia Today and Sputnik from broadcasting within its member states, deciding extra-democratically what we can and cannot see. The statement announcing the decision claimed the media outlets are responsible for a systematic international campaign of disinformation, information manipulation, and distortion of facts. Although I personally found Russia Today's constant depiction of Europe and the US as the sole sources of fascism and 20th century human misery offensive, this is no good reason to limit the media, and is no more disinformation than NATO media. Censorship comes in an indirect form by way of Anonymous, the alleged grassroots hacker movement, a movement with a shady past full of FBI and CIA connections. It was born out of the image boards 4chan and 8chan, known for trading of child abuse material and launching harassment campaigns against innocent people online. Last week they hacked and launched DDoS attacks against Russian government websites and media, leaving them inaccessible. Russia Today was once again attacked at approximately 8:40 a.m. GMT, which triggered their DDoS guard, and quickly resulted in the website being inaccessible until about 11 a.m. It has long been speculated that World War III will not be fought with guns, tanks, rockets, boats, and planes, conventional warfare, but will be hybridized warfare, heavily involving cyber attacks. Dmitry Rogozin, the head of Roscosmos, Russia's space agency, gave a stern warning on Tuesday after it came to light that cyber attacks were launched on Russian satellites. Rogozin said that further attacks could be seen as a casus belli, a justification for war. There's no reason to think that NATO powers won't continue their cyber attacks, which could further escalate the situation. Given Russia's latest assurance that they're not pulling nukes off the table, we are in truly worrying times. On the Ukrainian front itself, Russia is doing well. The country is surrounded by thousands of troops to the north, south, and east. Kiev itself is slowly being surrounded from the west, north, and east. Their intentions are clear. They wish to take Kiev, and the Kremlin spokesman has told us that they intend to stay the distance. However long it takes, it will take. This is what they're doing. Railway and roads out of Kiev are still open, and the Russians are urging citizens to leave. My concern lies with the fate of Ukraine now. NATO has fully engaged in a proxy war, using the country and her people as their whipping boy. If offensive weapons were withheld from the country, the Russian operation would be over within the next week, and we would see whether or not they were true to their word and withdraw their forces. But we don't live in that alternate reality. We live in a world where more and more weapons will be imported, and more volunteers from NATO countries will wield those weapons to fight a never-ending war against Russian occupation. Every day there is fighting in a country, less of the infrastructure and historical landmarks remain. It is truly an awful vision to behold. This may be Russia's Afghanistan. Well, their second Afghanistan. Censorship of opinions contrary to those of the state are the first to be censored and persecuted in the event of a war. Please see the description below for the podcast version of the Russia Dispatch so you can always stay up to date. I've been Howard Crane with EV Radio. David Zenya, Slán, goodbye.